Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to our Fallout 4 deep dive playlist. If you're new here and you haven't done so already, make sure you guys head on over to our channel, check out our deep dive playlist with other videos covering the vaults of Fallout 4. We're just taking a little bit of a break this week to cover an interesting character or a character that I think is interesting, and I figured you guys might want a little break from vaults as well. And if you haven't checked out our Fallout 4 playthrough yet, we've got a playlist for that also. We're about 30 episodes into that series, or getting close to 30 episodes, and we're having a great time with that. Also, if you haven't done so already, head on over to my Twitch channel, drop us a follow. I stream 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday throughout the week. Sometimes I do bonus streams on the weekends. Would love to hang out with you and talk more Fallout. But today, we're going to be looking into a character that I truly believe deserves a little bit more love when it comes to lore videos than he currently receives. Just like many characters from the Fallout universe, Swann is one of those that was ultimately misguided and taken advantage of. Now, before we get started, if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more Fallout content and join our growing community here on YouTube. Now, without further ado, let's get into some Fallout 4.
Way, I don't know if we should go do that. There is something I want to go look at with you guys, and I might actually go say we go do it now, and that'll be in the Boston Common.
If we take our time exploring the Commonwealth, or even attempted to save Nick Valentine in Vault 114 during the questline Unlikely Valentine, then Swann needs no introduction to us, the player. But from the hours of 1 a.m. to 5:30 a.m., he can be seen roaming around the edge of the pond referred to as Swann's Pond within the Boston Common area. During the remaining hours of the day, though, he's typically hidden within the pond under a pile of debris made up of a white swan boat, a tire, and a branch. If the player pays close attention before triggering Swann's encounter, you can sometimes see him shifting the pile of debris. The only reason Swann will emerge is if a companion or the player approaches the pile or damages it. Once the player triggers the encounter, it's obvious that at some point Swann had a level of intelligence, as he's using pieces of a swan boat fragment as armor. Swann is considered a behemoth super mutant. He has high damage resistance, energy resistance, and just like all other super mutants, he is immune to radiation damage as well as poison resistance. Needless to say, Swann's a tough guy. Now, this video doesn't necessarily want to focus in on FEV virus, but I do believe it's very important that we focus in on the backstory of Swann and how he ultimately ended up in this predicament. So, with that being said, I do believe it's important to know how Swann was introduced to the FEV virus, while we're not diving into the history of the FEV virus. I will say in a future video, I do plan on spending time discussing the FEV virus, the history of it, and the origins of it and all that good stuff. That will be announced at a later date. But until then, we're going to kind of do some general basic information on the FEV virus. Much of Swann's lore can be put together by discovering multiple notes left by Swann himself next to the steamer trunk he's protecting by the pond. Much of the information being provided in this video was gathered there during our playthrough, but I would also like to credit the Fallout Wiki as being one of our main sources for this video. So please feel free to pull up Swann's info and support the Fallout Wiki. Originally known as Edward Swann, he was a lower-level institute worker that found himself on the wrong side of the law after being caught stealing cigarettes. Swann was offered a form of probation in the form of living in isolation for a month. He would be provided food, water, and shelter, and his only requirement was to write in a journal about his experiences. But little did Swann know, he had been infected with the FEV virus, and for those of you that are unaware, this is the forced evolutionary virus. But this virus was an artificial virus created by West Tech's NBC division, used to essentially create a super soldier, but it had gone horribly wrong. Again, I plan on spending more time in the future doing a video diving more into the specifics of this virus. Anyways, if we take the time and we read Sean's notes, we can experience his change through his perspective. Edward Swann, Day 1. So I nipped a few cigs. Big deal. Smart asses may run this place, but they can't just do whatever they want. I got rights. Trials worked out for me in the end. They agreed to probation. I stay inside for a month, write something every day, and they'll bring me food and water I want. They think this is punishment? Sure beats scrubbing the floors all day. Edward Swann, Day 6. Should have known something was wrong when they came back for more tests. Every bone in my body aches. I'm on edge all the time, jittery, can barely write, but my mind's just racing. Damn it, what's going on? What'd they do to me? Edward Swann, Day 14. My physiological evolution seems to have stabilized. The medical team says my muscle mass has more than tripled since the experiment began, and my neural efficiency has improved markedly. This particular strain of modified FEV has been a remarkable success. I appear to have received all of the anticipated benefits without the typical adverse effects. My application to join the research team is awaiting the director's approval. Although further tests may be in order, I hope to be able to assist with my own experiment in the coming days. You are Swann. Swann's starting to realize that something is wrong when a scientist returned for additional tests around day 6. His body was aching, he felt very jittery, and was just agitated. His mind was racing, and he could hardly write. But after about 2 weeks, Swann's conditions improved. He experienced a 3-fold increase in his muscle mass and a major increase of intellectual capacity. Swann was now privy to the experience in its entirety, but was enthusiastic about it, so long as these improvements continued. He even applied to the research team, anticipating the thought of assisting in the experiment on himself. By the 3rd week, though, Swann found that his mental faculties were backsliding. He was experiencing seizures and returned to the observation lab. He had an understanding that he was in poor condition. The virus strain he was infected with was fundamentally unstable, and his health was rapidly deteriorating because of it. Swann became very anxious, awaiting to discover his fate of whether or not the scientists would reject him as they had for so many others before him. And eventually, Swann was exiled to the Commonwealth due to his conditions. This was a huge fear of his. He eventually made his way to the Boston Common, which we've already discussed. It's an abandoned park in the downtown ruins in the Commonwealth at Swann's Pond, where he made his home in the groundskeeper's shack. It's here that we find that he finally lost his mind to his mutation, eventually creating the Swann boat armor and fully transitioned into the super mutant behemoth by 2287. As previously mentioned, his experiment logs can be found scattered around his living area, with the final reading being, in all caps, I am Swann. While Swann's story is sad and shows the true nature of people in post-nuclear America, he has some pretty cool world interactions. He's known and recognized by the Commonwealth. Even your companion will warn you against entering the area, whether looking for Vault 114 or following the Freedom Trail when searching for the Railroad faction. If we engage in any combat with surrounding raiders, such as those located at the combat zone, they'll turn and run from that area and refuse to go near Swann's Pond. If we pay attention when we're approaching the pond as well, we'll notice there's signs all throughout the world that Bethesda took the time to kind of put throughout the area, warning the player, there's something down there that, basically indicating that's a pretty tough area. We probably don't want to go there. But I will say something pretty cool is if you do manage to take down Swann, you will be rewarded with the Furious Power Fist. So in this playthrough, I'm not doing a melee build, but it is a pretty good weapon, especially if you get it kind of early on and you're doing an unarmed or a melee build character. So would recommend for that. Swann's story is not a long one during our interaction with the Boston Common area, but I think it's a deep one. It's a story that shows the true intentions of humanity within the Fallout universe. It teaches us not to trust anyone of this world. And if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. In the end, if we took out Swann, I personally believe this was arguably an act of mercy, as this man was definitely not given a proper punishment for his initial crime. Thank you for tuning into this episode of our Fallout Deep Dive, and be sure to let me know down in the comments below if you've encountered Swann. What do you think of his story, and did you view the act of ending his existence as a form of mercy as well? We'll see you guys on the next episode of our Fallout Deep Dives.